Okay, hey, here we are. Here we are. I have the Forbidden Mountains behind me, which are the Pyrenees Mountains in France, and I think it's bordered France, the border of France and Spain. The Pyrenees Mountains behind me, that's kind of the setting of where our story takes place. So we're hopefully that Kimba can talk his tribe into taking that journey to the Forbidden Mountains. So like all readers, good readers, what we do is we think, what happened last time? Well, we know that Kimba got really upset. Kimba got really upset. He almost died. I mean, keep that in mind. He almost died several times trying to get that piece of tusk because he believed with all his heart that Utrecht had told the truth and that piece of tusk would bring Rab back to life. Then he loses it, and then he was told that it was all for nothing. All right, well, let's see what happens this time because Utrecht is old. They will need a new sorcerer after he dies. I don't know what Kimba's going to do. Let's find out. He could be a hunter now. Well, now we know. It says he could be a hunter. He could be a hunter now, Kimba told himself grimly. No more need to submit to Utrecht's instructions and his disciplines. Now he could be like the rest. Kimba stood far away from the fire, seeing the members of the tribe as small silhouettes against the flames. He had to be alone at this time. There were too many strange and difficult feelings whirling around within him. That Rab lived, he was gloriously happy. But that his efforts to destroy the One Tusk had been useless goaded him to fury. He thought of the One Tusk, of Sabo, of the others. All had filled him with fear, yet he had confronted them all because he had believed in Utrecht. Put a pin in that one. We're going to come back. He confronted them all because he believed in Utrecht. I'll come back to that. Two yellow dots gleamed in the darkness. The boy tensed, but he knew instinctively there was no cause for alarm. A moment later, the red speckled dog padded up to him, meaning Tor. He has a name now. Kimba rumpled Tor's shaggy coat. He realized that now he could not bring the dog into the camp. The tribe was famished and would certainly kill Tor. How foolish he had been to think it could be otherwise. They would not listen to explanations. They would instead quickly plunge their spears into the animal. So Tor must be an outcast. This too angered him. One person left the tribe and started toward Kimba. It was, he knew, Utrecht. He had avoided the sorcerer since he had learned that his pursuit of the One Tusk had been totally unnecessary. At once the dog left, melting into the blackness of the night. Utrecht leaned heavily on his staff. Kimba, he said, or he began, you will hear me whether you wish to or not. You will soon wear my robes. There are many more things I must teach you. No, Kimba said. I will be a hunter. Do not be misled because I sent you after the One Tusk. I have the power, and you have it too. There is no power, Kimba cried out. He thought of Sabo and how he had tried to deceive his tribe into thinking his power was genuine. Was Utrecht any different? Was he not just more skilled or more skillful at deception than Sabo had been? It is all a trick, Kimba shouted. The tribe does not need your tricks. The tribe needs meat. He darted past the sorcerer and ran back to the fire. Hear me, he called to the tribe. Come hear what I have to say. Okay, so now Kimba is calling attention of the tribe to him. What do you think he's going to tell them? There was authority in his voice, and at once they began to assemble about him. Good-natured curiosity showed on the faces of many. Others were suspicious of Kimba. What is it? Rab asked. Who summons us now, Utrecht or his whelp? Narek demanded of no one in a loud, grumbling voice. I will lead you to where there is meat, Kimba declared. Where? A half-dozen voices cried. The boy pointed toward the faraway peaks, cloaked now in darkness. He described the green valley he had found and its great herds. Those were the Forbidden Mountains, Narek growled. He had traveled through a cave under one of those mountains, Kimba went on, and he had returned. But it was forbidden to go there, said another hunter. There was game to be had there, Kimba insisted, and the tribe was hungry. This was the boy's bad power again, shouted Narek. He wished to lead them to their doom. The hulking, gray-bearded hunter glowered down at Kimba. Your power is bad, he asserted. Then Kimba faced Narek squarely and asked, what choice had they? They had found no game in a long while. A few small creatures, true, but these were not enough, not for the entire tribe. The large herds had left the region of the cave. They must look elsewhere, or soon they would grow too weak to continue. If the boy knew where there was game, Rab said, they must go after it. Some murmured agreement, but Narek repeated that it was forbidden to go near those peaks. It had always been forbidden. Back when he had been a child and there had been another sorcerer, even then it had long been known that those mountains were forbidden. Evil dwelled there. Mrodag, Narek's son, nodded vigorously. None of the tribe had ever approached that dreaded area, others said. I have, Kimba stated. I say you are not of the tribe, Narek thundered. I am of the tribe, and I will lead the tribe to game. You were not bred of the tribe, and you have never been of the tribe. Let it be up to you, Trek, Rab said quietly. The sorcerer moved into the firelight. Voices babbled, telling him of Kimba's suggestion. Utrecht silenced them by waggling his staff. I heard, he said. It was forbidden to go there, Narek persisted. It was a place of bad power. There was much game in that valley, said Kimba impatiently. The tribe has great hunger. What has your power done? Ooh. He was just pretty disrespectful to Utrecht. His question was insolent, he knew. Once he would not have dared to speak that way to Utrecht. The muttering voices ceased abruptly. No one had ever questioned Utrecht in such a tone before. For many long moments, the old man's eyes bored into Kimba's. The boy suddenly turned away, feeling his newfound defiance crumbling. I will lead you to fresh meat, he repeated, stubbornly but softly, almost to himself. At last Utrecht spoke. The boy had the power, he said. He felt the tribe being called to those mountains. What was forbidden once might not be so now. He felt that Kimba had been sent to lead them there. He felt that there his own power again would be strong. There he would summon more game than they could eat. And his power, he was sure, would counter any bad power of the mountains. The sorcerer hobbled away into the shadows. Kimba realized that he had stood up to Utrecht and forced the old man to give in. It was well, he thought. He and Rab would see to it that the tribe was fed soon. Their courage and skill would do it, not any of the ancient sorcerer's worthless tricks. Progress was painfully slow for the next 4 days. Gaunt and hungry, the men, women, and children toiled along with effort, bowed under the sacks that held their possessions. The loads were carried either on their backs or slung from head straps. Kimba had refused to carry Utrecht's equipment, and the sorcerer had accepted this refusal without a word. A boy who had not seen 10 summers was instead recruited for this purpose. Rab was displeased with Kimba's attitude, but he would not interfere in matters between the sorcerer and his assistant. The rest of the tribe knew that all was not well between the two, but neither Utrecht nor Kimba would discuss the cause of it. Tabak walked beside Kimba throughout the long day, but he said little to his friend. He was awestruck by this unfamiliar sense of tension between those who had the power. It's not good for the tribe to have this doubt. Only Narek and a few others talked about the subject among themselves in low and surly voices, seeing it as dissension that could lead to disaster. They also frowned apprehensively at the pinnacles of the Forbidden Mountains. Often they looked searchingly over the empty tundra. If only they could sight fresh game, they told each other. Then they need not complete this foolhardy journey. Kimba too glanced frequently about. He was concerned that he might glimpse Tor, and that the hunters of the tribe might also. Almost as much as he feared that Tor was no longer nearby, cautiously trailing them. But there was no sign of the wild dog. Each day they fed on nuts, roots, bark, and a few snails. Though the pace of their march was slow, a woman called Mota could not keep up with the rest. She was soon to become a mother. Her mate had been one of the hunters killed by the One Tusk. Exhausted and weak, she continually lagged behind. Okay, so she's a pregnant woman who lost her husband, was killed, or her mate is what they would say. And now she's having trouble keeping up. Erda fell back frequently to keep her company, smiling and gossiping, but Mota would seldom look up. On the morning of the fourth day, as they crossed a ridge, Mota stubbed her toe on a rock. She was thrown off balance and pitched into a ravine. The woman was attempting to stifle cries of pain as the members of the tribe hurried to her. One leg had suffered a deep, wide gash. Her body writhed in spasms of agony. Utrecht ordered a fire made, while he went to gather some creeping purple and white flowers that were just coming into bloom. He tore off a few tendrils, ground them up, and began boiling them in a horsehide container. He pointed to some squat, prickly hawthorn bushes that grew on a hillside. "Go, Kimba," he said, instructing the boy to pick off the tiny, just reddening berries. Kimba set his mouth into a hard line. He did not move. "Go," Utrecht repeated. The boy shook his head. It was as though he were being sent again after the ivory of the One Tusk. It would not help. It was another trick. Utrecht could become outraged if he chose, but Kimba was determined not to be deceived once more. Utrecht only turned away, his face expressionless. He walked very stiffly the long way to the hawthorn himself. When he returned, he told Mota to drink the water that the flowers had been boiled in. Then he reduced the tiny berries he had picked to a pulp, heated them also, and thoroughly soaked a thin piece of dough hide in the mixture. This poultice he applied to the leg wound. Kimba looked on skeptically. The woman's pain and her injuries were severe. They must either spend several days here with her while they all became more desperately hungry, or they must abandon her. But soon her spasms ended and she went peacefully to sleep. More poultices were applied during the night, and by the next dawn the bleeding and swelling had subsided. The healing was well underway. She was able to walk, and so the tribe set out again. As Mota resumed her place in the column, Utrecht came over to Kimba. "The power is not all a trick," he said simply. So we would score 1 for Utrecht on that one. He saved this woman's life, and now she can continue the journey to the Forbidden Mountains without risking the lives of the other members of the tribe. A hard rain began after midday. It lasted all the way to the base of the Forbidden Mountains. Narek and a few others complained constantly, convinced that this was an evil sign. Kimba noticed that Tabak looked up often, measuring the heights above. His mouth gaped open, and his eyes were wide with wonder. That night they huddled shivering under a projecting boulder while the rain continued. They were too famished, too hungry, and too weary to talk, but fear of this strange and mysterious region shone on their faces. Kimba knew he should tell them of the cave they must go through to reach the valley, the cave with which the others inhabited. So he hasn't even told them about the cave that they have to go through that the others live in. That's tough. But the others might be gone when they entered the cave the next day. They might all be out hunting, or they might have moved to wherever else they camped during their migrations. Still, Kimba knew he should tell the tribe, but if he did, would they still follow him? And if they would not, How could he convince them that they should? He could not say it was because he had the power. He was not sure now that there was any such power. He saw Narek studying him with distrust. If something went wrong on the mountainside, he knew he would be blamed. Even Utrecht would not save him from the wrath that would follow. And why, it occurred to him suddenly, would Utrecht even care to defend him now? He reached up to touch the magic wolf tooth and then remembered he had thrown it away. At that moment, he wished he had it back. So that's what kids do, don't they? They do things and then they regret it and then they wish they hadn't done it. That happens. Kimba did it. At a very late hour that night, as he attempted without success to sleep, he heard the snarl and growl of two animals in the far distance. It was a brief battle, and then there was only the sound of the steady downpour. But he was certain he had recognized one of the growls. Tor, he whispered. May Tor have won that fight, and may Tor remain nearby. The rain ended as they began to climb in the morning. But the day was damp and dark. Like Tabak, many of the tribes stared at the towering shafts of the peaks above, dazzled and fear-stricken. The rest were too terrified even to raise their eyes. Kimba had sighted the entranceway to the cave, and so he scrambled ahead first. Most of the climb would not have been difficult if they had been well-fed and confident. But because of their exhaustion, the belongings they carried, and their dread, progress was slow. Hugging the mountainside closely, Kimba crept to within a stone's throw of the ledge outside the cavern. He saw nothing, and he heard nothing. Rab appeared, and Kimba motioned him to keep down. For the first time, the boy mentioned the others. Rab looked surprised and, for an instant, angry. "Is there more you have not told us?" he snapped. "No," Kimba replied. A valley filled with game awaited through that long chamber. Rab's face was grim. He looked upward and then to the slopes below. Kimba knew what he was asking himself, if it might be best to leave now before they were discovered. "We will continue," he said. The tribe had come too far to turn back. And where would they go? And what game would sustain them? He signaled to the hunters, waving them upward. As they climbed to join Rab and Kimba, a burly, shambling figure came into view on the ledge. It was a lookout for the others. He glanced down, and then his hoarse shout brought a dozen of his comrades on the run. Rab and the hunters clambered up to the attack. The others rushed to a row of boulders they kept on the ledge to ward off enemies. Yelling to work up their courage, they strained and pushed. With a roar, the first boulder rolled down the slope toward the approaching hunters. Then a second hurtled after it. Okay, so right now we have boulders raining down on Kimba and his tribe, the hunters. We got the others pushing off those boulders down the cliff. Okay, so that makes it a lot harder to attack and to fight. All right, we'll see what happens tomorrow. All right, you guys have a great day. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.